Despite weeks of hand-wringing following the devastating 8-24 season for the Michigan basketball team, Juwan Howard has been let go. He has been fired, despite all of the last couple weeks where people were just assuming he would be back due to Ward Manuel and all of that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little Michigan football with the coordinators meeting with the media for the first time right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Friday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And regardless of a lot of the uproar that happened in the last couple weeks of just this assumption that Ward Manuel was going to retain, right? There were reports. I don't know about the veracity of those reports. I told you about that at the time. That just felt like part of the campaign to make Ward Manuel. Again, I know I'm the sole Ward Manuel defender out there. I'm not saying he's been perfect. He's mismanaged quite a few things in this brave new world. But for those who act like he absolutely was going to retain Juwan Howard because reasons. I mean, I told you back then, a couple weeks ago, I didn't believe that was going to be the case. So here we are after the worst Michigan basketball season in program history, the most losses at least, 3 wins in the Big Ten, I believe it is. I mean, it was absolutely abysmal. And certainly between the roster management, the decision making, for a while it was like, okay, they look good in the first half, and in the second half, things kind of fall apart and they lose closer games. That goes back to last year. This year, same deal, just it started to become more and more emphatic until it became very evident that the team just had given up, right? Earlier in the season, I would not have anticipated that Michigan would lose to Penn State, or Rutgers. And because and I understand they lost to Penn State earlier, but I mean, it just got so bad. Right, this was just an uncompetitive team. It was clear. And then the kicking point here is that you lose a guy in John Sanderson who goes to Illinois as, I don't know what you call it, like an analyst type, right? Like a consultant. He's not their strength and conditioning guy. So he could be brought back if the new coach really goes all out. You lose him because of an altercation with the head coach. This is part of the mismanagement. I believe that Juwan should have been out at that moment, kind of regardless. Because, granted, no one really knows the whole true story, right? We have kind of some aftermath stuff that is like, okay, this is what John Sanderson says, which I'm inclined to believe. But, we don't have Juwan's side of that story. Whatever made the athletic department decide, okay, we're going to, we're going to stand pat at the moment. Still, to me, it was like, okay, this is too much. From the Joe Krabenhoff to the Mark Turgeon to all of these different incidents that Juwan Howard has had. To me, that would have been enough, and that would have been who is more important to the program at this point? It would have been John Sanderson. So it is unfortunate. Michigan basketball goes out on a whimper in the season, and therefore Juwan Howard is without a job. And it's a shame that it didn't work out because it really had a lot of hallmarks early of looking pretty good. And I know that a lot of that was with him, using Beeline players, but the recruiting in the early going was really good. There was a fire. The players seemed to really love him. It seemed like everything was kind of at least going to be buoyant. And I don't know if it was because of, the different things he had, from the Wisconsin incident to the Maryland incident to him having heart surgery, right? You can change, right? I don't think anyone should be wishing ill will on Juwan at all, and I don't think anyone is. But at a certain point, you look at it and you say, all right, what happened? And it's like, it's been a journey, for Juwan, and it started out really well, but the tail end, the last half has been, it's been a mixture of, bad for him personally, a clown show in some respects and regards. And it's a shame because he was a favored son. I mean, even as recent as the first game of this last year in football, he comes out on the field and everyone's cheering him, and he was a true celebrity, right? Everyone wanted a piece of Juwan. And I mean, he was already a celebrity as a Fab Five guy, but it was really just that much more of like, all right, we know last year wasn't very good. This roster doesn't look great. Certainly, like, if they would have been able to retain Caleb Love, who ends up being Pac-12 Player of the Year, if they're able to get in Papa Conte, some of these guys that didn't end up making it to campus, it certainly could have been a lot different. But you know what? Them's the breaks, right? You didn't have contingencies for things going wrong, and that's hurt you 2 straight years. And you mix all of that stuff together, and then you add in the win-loss record. It's impossible to overcome. So where does Michigan basketball go from here? I have 7 names I wrote down. Whether or not any of them are realistic or not is beside the point. We'll give them to you fast because we're not going to spend 2 segments talking about basketball. We'd rather spend those 2 segments talking about football. I think top of my list would be, and I agree with Steve Dace, who posted as his Michigan podcast moniker. Chris Collins would probably be at or near the top of my list as far as the Northwestern coach. I mean, he's done a fantastic job with a school that's got similar limited resources. Obviously, it's not nearly as attractive of a place to go play basketball, and it kind of would remind me of bringing in John Beilein when they brought him in. So that's what I would look at. I'm going to Google something real fast. Porter Moser seems like he's out at Oklahoma. He's got kind of the right kind of mentality. And again, maybe I haven't done a deep dive on any of these guys. I think one of the most important things that I would look at is fit, right? Because I've seen some pieces out there from some national outlets that are just like throwing out names where it's like, man, what are you thinking? Like that's not going to work at Michigan, right? Like Michigan's never going to look at, it's like, you start seeing like, oh yeah, Michigan's going to bring in John Calipari. Like that's almost certainly not going to happen. He's had too much negative smoke, right? So I feel like that's probably not a good move, right? All right, I'm going to eliminate this one that I just had here, probably. Number 2, I already did 2. John Beilein is an intriguing one to me because, yeah, he's 71 years old. I still feel like he's got some coaching left in him. Yes, it's a brave new world with the portal and NIL and all that stuff. He would be a Band-Aid. So I could see a situation where you maybe say like, all right, we're going to bring you in, John Beilein, but you also need to have an heir apparent. Maybe that's Patrick Beilein, who's a coach of a semi-pro team or whatever it is. That's what I was looking up there for a second. Maybe you do something like that. You have like the heir apparent there, and he like, kind of, it could be someone else. It could, you could, bring back Luke Yaklich, who is currently without a job, and you do something kind of more where it's like you're handing off to the heir apparent, which is how it should have gone in the first place. Shaka Smart, could you pry him away from Marquette? He's done a great job. Brian Dutcher, former Steve Fisher guy, who's been, on campus at Michigan. He's at San Diego State. Rick Barnes at Tennessee. That would be a big swing, right? He's been at Tennessee for 9 years. And the last one is almost certainly not going to happen, but, maybe he wants to get back into the big leagues. He's at a good basketball school, which happens to be his alma mater, and that's Thad Matta, former Ohio State coach. If you're just going to take the running backs coach, you might as well get their old basketball coach as well. But that would be my list of 7 at the moment. But nonetheless, it's that's the type of character type guys also for the most part. Again, I haven't done deep dives on everybody here, but like going out and getting a John Calipari or a Will Wade or, someone that's had like an heir, like obviously Rick Pitino's never going to happen or anything like that. Like, just they're not going to go towards those types of names, even though some of the national outlets are going to put out lists that are just completely unrealistic because they just don't understand. And that's why you tune into shows like us, or you go to like the Wolverine.com or Michigan Insider, is because, we at least will give you the other two, the two I just mentioned, we'll probably give you actual names that are being considered because they're they tread more on the insider track, which is not generally what we do. We do it sometimes. With basketball, we have never done it. So we're not going to start now. Anyway, that's what I've got for you right now. It's a sad day, but it was also a happy day because we got to have some football stuff going on. And that's always a fun day right before spring practice starts. So we will get to the interesting things that came out of Wink Martindale and Kirk Campbell's press conference today. And we will do that here in just a moment. But before we do, did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar that you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most from your retirement, for your retirement, thanks to their IRA, but with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. All right, we're going to continue on in just a moment, but when you think about what's coming up right now, there's not going to be any Michigan basketball next week, right? But that doesn't make March Madness. We're all crazy about March Madness any less appealing, right? That the Thursday and Friday, that's among the best in sports, and you don't want to miss out. And there's one way that you can make sure that you don't, and that's Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights, in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently also created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and the most important big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, Major League Baseball, heck of a lot more. Not to mention it's great news, entertainment, gaming, travel. I've watched some cooking videos on there with Curtis Stone. You can check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. All right, so let's delve into a little bit more of the world of football. We met with Kirk Campbell and Wink Martindale today at not even at Schembeckler Hall. We were in Al Glick Fieldhouse. Sorry, taking a little sip of the soda stream here. There were some interesting things I thought that came out of both. We'll start with Wink and then we'll move on into Kirk because there's just a lot to kind of get into. Like we talked to Kirk for about 18 minutes and Wink for like 25. So with Wink, I think that there seems to be a understanding and a love for what Michigan is. Like this wasn't what I expected when he got hired, right? Like when you bring in a guy who was the most prominent defensive coordinator in the NFL at his time a couple of years ago, right? He was the talk of the town, and the town being the United States of America. And then for him to kind of, get usurped by his own protege, go to the Giants and it goes okay, but it doesn't go like amazing, but it doesn't go bad. But then there's some similarities to how things went in East Rutherford, New Jersey and San Francisco when it came to Jim Harbaugh, right? They wanted him out. So he's out. You would expect him taking the college job to feel like, well, let's just go ahead and do this. Right? Like that's kind of what I thought was going to end up happening, right? Like he's just like, well, a job's a job. I guess this is what I can get. And, this is the way to go. No, it wasn't. It doesn't seem to be that at all. There's certainly a zeal for Michigan and like a willingness and a desire to attack. I mean, for lack of a better term, every day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Certainly a love for Sharon Moore. Then you could feel like a gratitude coming from Wink. Like I walked away. I think the first thing that I said was I turned to Clayton Safey, I think it was right after Wink got done. And I was like, that was good. He was good. Right. Like he was fun. He was engaging. He still has a level of seriousness. Right. Like I said this to Reiner from the Detroit Free Press when we were walking out. I said, I'm not saying that the last staff wasn't serious. It was very serious, right? Like, and they won a national championship. So this is not an apples and apples type of comparison. But kind of like, like there was some character-y guys, like obviously starting with Jim Harbaugh, who's, lack of a better term, an oddball, right? He's very serious about football, but outside of that, he kind of got his own 3-ring circus going on, right? But now it just kind of feels like a level of seriousness, and it almost feels like the transition at Notre Dame going from Charlie Weiss to Brian Kelly in the terms of like, oh, there's serious football people in this building now. Now, again, there were serious football people in the building before, but it's like the shenanigans are gone, even though Wink had a lot of little funny moments, right? Like, oh, you're calling me old, and I can't tell you, that'd be telling Ryan Day and Sark what we're going to do, and we don't want to do that. Stuff like that, right? That there was moments of levity, but it's moments of levity compared to like you're walking away saying like I can take away a lot of football knowledge from this conversation compared to I'm the entire story today is about writing about chickens. And that was, again, the head man and Jim Harbaugh, and everyone was glad for it, right? Because he was this endless source of entertainment as well as the source of winning. So, again, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but Wink was he has a zeal for the game in general. He said one of the things that my grandpa used to always say is, you learn everything, you have to, have a desire to learn something every day, and the moment you lose that, you die. Like my grandpa said, you have to learn something new every single day. I don't know that I live up to that. If I learn it too, I forget it as fast as I'm become Dory from Finding Nemo. But nonetheless, I think that's a good mentality. He's kind of got that like, coach and then you die type mentality. Considers himself an educator first. But like some of the takeaways to me were when he asked about recruiting. And I think we all, certainly I've gone right here on this show, and this is me telling you I was wrong. I thought like, okay, you've got this NFL coordinator guy. You can just plan on him not being an avid recruiter. But as long as you surround him with other guys that want to recruit, then you're fine. No, it sounds like he's like, I've got to have my skin in the game, right? He says, the way I look at it is you recruit every single day. And it's like, wait, that's what? And it's like, oh, well, what about getting on the road? He's like, well, in the NFL, you get out on the road. Maybe it's a little different going to pro days and things like that. But like, yeah, I'll hit the road. I'll do, I'll do everything it takes. I'm going to get to know everyone around that kid, probably more than I even get to know the kid himself, because I want to know everything there is to know about whatever kid there is. So that was a little bit of a surprise. That's not what I anticipated. He does seem like he is willing to, kind of let some things that he would normally like keep as his own kind of go for the sake of the team. But like he did also say like, there are some certain things like terminology wise, like, yeah, we're not changing. I'm an old dog, not time to learn new tricks. But he's like, but there are a lot of other things that, hey, you guys did it this way. Perfect. He loves the engagement of the team and the leadership of the team. He says, everyone out there that he's really kind of seeing, they're all leaders in different ways. And he said, as far as talent is concerned, yeah, like we'll get a better chance to evaluate that starting with spring practice. And that's what all that's for. But there is a little bit of a malleability to him, right? It's like, and like he said, everything is circumstantial. It's like, yeah, we blitzed a lot. at times in the NFL, but that was because that was what was necessary for those seasons, those games, things of that nature. But when it comes to what we're going to do here at Michigan, we're facing off against Ohio State, and, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. So that's exactly kind of what I wanted to hear, right? Like, it's not going to be like it's my way or the highway. I'm going to come in. I'm the OG of this. Like, he kind of laughed about that, but he also talked about leaning on Jesse Minter and Mike McDonald and being like a proud dad, having watched them come up. But he's also, it's not like, all right, well, I'm the dad, and so I'm going to come in, I'm going to do things my way because I showed you. But it's more of like, all right, well, I can also lean on these guys because they've been there and they've been around it, and they created it, from the image of the things that I created. But, they did some things differently. And so he said that they did some things that he thought were really cool. And now I can take a step back and I can look at it. But I can also, give them a call. He said Jesse's been, picks up the phone every single time he calls them, right? Like, he's busy in Los Angeles getting acclimated there, but he picks up the phone every single time. So a humility as well to Wink Martindale, which is, again, not something that I expected or anticipated. We'll continue with more Wink takeaways because there's a lot more than this, right? Like I said, he talked to us for 25 minutes, and we'll talk a lot more about that stuff tomorrow on Saturday is the plan. So we will get to Kirk Campbell next because he had a ton of really incredible things to say as well. Lots of stuff to break down too. And we're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, this week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week we are picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The Utah State Aggies are obviously this week's Nissan Rogue. The team absolutely surprised us all with a powerful performance against New Mexico, giving them their first outright Mountain West title in program history. They say, win life, go Rogue. That's exactly what the Aggies have done here. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada, and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right, so we also had, we opened up with Kirk Campbell, who discussed the Michigan offense, and some similar types of things coming out of him in terms of like, okay, so how are you going to run this? What's this going to be like? Is it going to be like, okay, we have a scheme we implemented, we're going to do these things, and we're just going to, you're just going to have to be that square peg that fits in a round hole. And it's not that. Like, this is still all very complimentary football, and it's all personnel driven, right? Like he talked about the quarterbacks, and he says that's a wide open scenario, right? They're going to go in terms of pecking order on day one by seniority and then by last name, right? So like it will go Denegal or G when it comes to the juniors. It's a wide open competition. And he's like, we're not putting timelines on things as far as having a quarterback, about having an offensive line, all of that kind of stuff. Like, this is all, we're going to be in an exploratory phase, and whatever we do is going to fit what we have at our disposal, right? And like we've got a lot of weapons, whether it's Donovan or Colston or Samaj Morgan or Tyler Morris. They've got a lot that they really like still, and they're not going to be afraid to go to the portal if they need it. It says we're open and honest, that it's a constant evaluation, so there shouldn't be no blindsiding and no like kind of hurt feelings as far as that's concerned. Keeping the daily coughs away by drinking Soda Stream, not drinking alcohol. I don't do that. Sorry for the pause. So I think that's really interesting and important, right? Let me go to my notes here just so that I remember, because I know that there's certain different things there. But Miles Hinton, like, he's really excited about him at left tackle. And it's funny because he's coming back, and I almost forget about him, even though he was the day one starter. And he's the one holdover from the group of the guys that were mostly playing. But I mean, that's still part of it. Of we're not gonna, we don't have anything set. We don't have anything that we know for sure. They're gonna cross train Josh Priebe at guard and center. He'll also provide a challenge for Greg Crippen. If Greg Crippen loses that job, he's got to be sad, right? Because he's been just kind of biding his time. He's faced every uphill battle when it comes to that. But it would be fun to see Greg Crippen rise through that and become like an All-American center. But that's up to him, of course. I think one of the fun parts to me was asking Kirk about Tony Alford, right? Because he said like, well, we got the right guy for the job. And no, the conspiracies in Columbus that he's been, subverting everything and has been hired by Michigan for a long time. Like Kirk made it pretty clear he's not even met him in person yet or anything like that. Or it doesn't even seem like he's had many, if any, conversations with him at this juncture. But it is, he said he's done his diligence and talked to people who know him. And he's just like, he's everything we need. Like he's the type of coach we need. He's the type of recruiter we need. All of that kind of stuff. So it's, I feel walked away feeling pretty good about the offense. And I think one of the things that's interesting is I had asked Kirk Campbell about how do you synthesize, all of your offensive coordinator experience. And like he said, like, listen, I was thrown to the wolves my first offensive coordinator job, 24 years old, didn't really know what I was doing. But now as a result, I'm in a place where I have a much better handle on things because I had to figure it out. And then I got to take a step back and then kind of work my way back up. So I think that's going to bode well. And he's got some experience. And as Wink Martindale, not to go back to Wink, but like as Wink was talking about, like, when did experience count for nothing, right? Like, people act like, oh, you've got to be young and you got to be whatever. And I think that plays well for both. Maybe more so for Wink because he's been around the block a little bit more. But I think that's where this is a really interesting staff because it is you've got a lot of youth, but you had a lot of experience, right? Kirk Campbell's been an offensive coordinator before. Sharon Moore is his first-time head coach, but he got interim opportunity, obviously. Steve Kazula, tight ends coach, who's been an offensive coordinator. Granted, it was at UMass, and that wasn't exactly anything you're going to write home about, but still. Ron Bellamy, who's been the wide receivers coach and a high school head coach of a state champion. Grant Newsome, who's been groomed for that position. Wink Martindale, who's been around the NFL forever. Brian Jean-Marie, who's been around for a long, long time at the college level and has been a defensive coordinator. Greg Scruggs, who's been a college coach and an NFL behind-the-scenes coach, has the experience. Lamar Morgan, who has been a college defensive coordinator. It's just a lot of really good experience. And I think that could bode really well. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Like I said, the plan is a Saturday episode. I don't have anything going on tomorrow. So if I am lying to you and I don't have a Saturday episode, then I don't know. I really want to hit 5 episodes this week. So we're going to move for that. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back then. Peace.